going to do that. I mean, I may want recovery, but I'm not going to do what that person's doing to get recovery. So I would go to the meetings and internally criticize the people that were at the meetings because I didn't want to do what they were doing. And I found out later that that's a denial mechanism that we use, that instead of looking at ourselves, it's real easy to try to criticize the other people at the meeting. So I found out that I'm not alone in that I was doing that. So when I started out, I just went to meetings. Then I heard this stuff about giving up sugar, and I played with that. I'd give it up for a while, and then, I just played with it for a while. And then, I'm not going to really go into detail about this, but I was attacked by someone verbally that I trusted, and they used 12-step language in the attack, and so I put all my stuff away for a while. I said, I'm not even going to look at this 12-step stuff. But thanks be to God, I had joined an email group that I couldn't unsubscribe from. I tried repeatedly, and I could not unsubscribe from this group. So they kept sending me the darn emails, so I just deleted them. And then one day, only by the grace of God, I decided to read the email, and it was a woman my age, with about the same ages of my children. I have 5 children, they're all adults now, but at the time some of them weren't. And she weighed almost exactly the same thing I did, and she talked about how she was losing weight, but even more than that, was having peace, was having serenity with food. And so I tiptoed back toward the 12-step groups. I was still really scared because I had been attacked. But she told me about this phone meeting, and that sounded sort of safe because you don't have to see anybody. So I started listening to, it's called A Vision for You. It's an OA phone meeting. And it's the first time I heard about this being the disease of the body, not just the mind, not just weak-willed, not just, get your act together, Pat, and do what you know you should be doing. I heard that eating certain foods changed how my brain acted, and that normal eaters could eat that same food, like my husband could eat a piece of chocolate cake and let the rest of the chocolate cake rot if he wasn't hungry, which made no sense to me at all. How you could let delicious chocolate cake rot made no sense to me. But he could eat, and I'd say, aren't you going to eat that? And he'd say, well, I'm not hungry. And I was like, well, what's that have to do with anything? I mean, so anyway, I started listening to these A Vision for You meetings, which are based on the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it takes a little adjusting to listen to and identifying with alcoholism when I didn't get that physical connection, the allergy of the body, where my brain acted differently when I ate sugar. It's like, well, alcoholics have it easy. They can just stop drinking. I still have to eat. But I started hearing about alcoholic foods and trigger foods, and maybe there were certain foods, if I ate them, I had no control over what I did after that. That it was not that I was just weak-willed, that there was something happened in my brain that actually changed the way my brain operated, and the, what's it called, what you get when you eat your trigger foods, the phenomena of craving. The phenomena of craving starts. I could overeat broccoli if I ate one of my trigger foods. It didn't matter what the food was. I just had to start stuffing stuff in my mouth. So that was a real turning point. And I picked up an OA, A Vision for You sponsor who was she made me work, which was good because I didn't want to work. And she had me call her 6 a.m. She would have had me call her 6 days a week. But I said, I'm taking the weekend off. So 5 days a week, I called her at 6 a.m. We talked for a half an hour, 5 days a week. And I remember visiting my sister once, and I had to arrange the phone calls around that, and she said to me, "You call her every day?" And I was like, "Well, almost every day, yeah, she would let me, she'd have me call her every day." I said, this is what works for my life. And, "Well, how much does she charge?" And I was like, "Nothing." "You call her every day and talk for half an hour and she charges you nothing?" I was like, "No, yeah, she charges me nothing." So I had played around, actually I played around with some step work, because I started seeing back here that, yeah, maybe the steps were important, but I sort of did them on my own, like I was trying to do it by myself. Doesn't work too well. And then I found somebody, a spiritual leader in my community, that I was going to present my 5th step to. 4th step is take a serious searching moral inventory, and 5th step you present it to somebody else. Well, I found somebody to present it to, then he got moved to Chattanooga, so it took me over a year to present my 5th step, because I didn't want to do it. He moved to Chattanooga. But still, there was no continuity. He wasn't my sponsor. It was like a one-time deal. This is how awful I've been. And so it really didn't bring about the change that I saw when I started working with my sponsor with A Vision for You, and she said, "You're gonna go do this, and you're gonna do this." And I even brought a sample of the 4 steps that the page that she had me use to do my 4 step. Does anybody want to see that? Or, well, let me be sure that's what it is. I don't want to pass out my husband's 4 step. I don't want anybody to drop over. But, and so anyway, she had me do this 4 step inventory in a very different way. She just had me she's had me first start with neutral things, like the things you have resentments about, but they're not real personal, like institutions. Mm-hmm. So she had me write this, you'll see on this inventory, what is the resentment? And, first I want to say, the first time I did resentments, oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. I'm nice Pat, I'm not a mean person that holds grudges against people. I seem like a nice person? I had pages and pages, single spaced, of people that I was resenting. I could not believe what I was holding on to. And, so she had me start with institutions, so that it was not as personal, and then she had me work into the people closer and closer to me. When I did my 4th step about my husband, and I had to look at my part, I will tell you, I'm married 42 years. We had been in marriage counseling a couple times in our life, and not long before I did this 4th and 5th step, maybe a year or so before we did. I got so much more out of doing that 4th and 5th step with my sponsor. It changed our lives. It changed our relationships. And anybody can have one of those. I made extras if anybody wants a 4-step inventory sheet. But, so anyway, where are we? So we're with the sponsor. Oh, she had me, I had to listen to Vision for You meetings every morning, so they're at 7 o'clock, but they're recorded, so you can listen to them other times. Now there's a 10 a.m. one. So I'd call her, I'd listen to the meeting. She had me make outreach phone calls, and that was really interesting, cold calls. Mm-hmm. And there's hundreds of people on A Vision for You's website. So there's no paucity of people to call, and they're all different time zones, so you don't have the excuse, oh, well, it's too late, I can't call anybody. They're in California, they're still up. And I had some really neat God experiences when I was doing those Vision for You phone calls. Where people ministered to me, but God even used me to minister to them, even though I wasn't fully recovered. How are we doing time-wise? And Okay, so my plan of eating back during this time was not to eat sugar. That was my plan of eating. I figured, you know, I spent, 50 more years of my life dieting. I knew what to eat for a diet. So, and it worked initially. I was losing weight and I thought, man, this is easy. Just don't eat sugar and you just continually lose weight. Well, that sort of didn't happen. I sort of got to a point where I just stopped losing. And I started looking at,
Do you have your picture?
yes,
Okay.
and I have it as a story. So I plateaued for a while. And then the sponsor that I became extremely close to, one of the things I want to tell, I've had a number of sponsors. And there were times I've had 2 sponsors, and there's times I had sort of sponsors, that food sponsors, just, God has provided what I needed at the time. And some sponsors didn't work at all. I've had sponsors that were not healthy for me, and that I had to say, this is not, with my temperament and what encourages me, if you're gonna be perfectionistic and say that I can never make a mistake, that doesn't work for me. Now, other people, you know, and I also don't count how many days I've been abstinent. That doesn't work for me, because if I eat one thing wrong, then I'm like freaked out that I can't say I'm 31 days. So for me, it's just one day at a time is what works for me. Other people, counting the days is a motivator. So everybody has their own journey, their own path. But this was really important to talk about, own journey, own path, is that this sponsor that I became extremely close to, she and I were worlds apart on a lot of things, but outside issues. We were worlds apart, and we accidentally found out we were worlds apart because of just trying to connect and mentioning what things we were doing. We found out we were worlds apart on issues, but she did not drop me because of that. She dropped me because of God. And I had an extremely hard time. She told me, and I won't go into the details, but anyway, she said she didn't have anything more to offer me. And we had been meeting from like July to March, 5 times a week. I was devastated. I was totally devastated. And I just felt like I wasn't gonna make it without her. But God had a different plan, because I still made those outreach phone calls. And one day I made an outreach phone call, and instead of saying to the OA person, how are you doing with your food or whatever I was gonna say, I said to that person, whom I didn't know, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic and I'm feeling really abandoned right now. And she said, Pat, in a half an hour, we're starting a phone group for OA people that are adult children of alcoholics. We're starting this new meeting. The first time we're meeting is a half an hour from now. Let me send you the information. I know, she's doing what I did. And I found out this woman answered the phone. She was in the shower. And she said she never got out of the shower to answer the phone, but that day she got out of the shower and answered the phone. So I've had a little wiggle here where I did intensive ACA work, but I realized my issues, all my resentments, a lot of my junk were related to that. And this is part of God's plan. I needed to work through a lot of that stuff to be able to continue on to recovery. And then what happened in January, this person would not leave me alone.
It's an anonymous program, right?
Pardon me?
It's an anonymous program, right?
It's an anonymous program. My husband, whom I love dearly, I was in the waiting room. He was having a cardiac stress test for chest pain. His dad died at 50, how old are we now? Okay, his dad died at 58 and had his first bypass at 49. My husband's having chest pain. I'm sitting in the waiting room praying, and this person texts me and tells me to pick a, this person had been telling me to get a plan of eating, that he thought maybe, oh heck, I'm gonna say he.
It's the elephant in the room.
Maybe this plateauist experience was related to the fact that I never wrote down what I ate and had no plan of eating except don't eat sugar. So I had been encouraged numerous times to get a plan of eating, but of course, to get a plan of eating, I had to have the perfect plan that I could do perfectly. And I couldn't find the perfect plan that I could do perfectly, so I didn't have a plan. So I get a phone call in the waiting room, or a text, I think it was a text, saying to pick a plan of eating by Thursday, this was a Monday, or to get up at the Thursday meeting and tell everybody why after X number of years I didn't have a plan of eating. So that made me mad.
Yeah.
That really made me mad because I didn't want to do that, but I thought, I can't pick a plan. How am I? So I'm on my phone in the waiting room while my husband's on a treadmill, maybe gonna die and have a heart attack while and so I'm trying to look up food plans. And then I finally said, I need to be praying for my husband. I am not doing this. Well, then I sort of remembered that the person had suggested that I ask God for a food plan. So at the time I was having a phone meeting on Monday, a small group of experienced recovery people had a phone meeting on OA phone meeting on Mondays. I got on the phone meeting that afternoon. I had asked God for a plan of eating. I didn't have time to look up a plan of eating. My husband was fine. He thought he's Superman now. So he was fine. So I get on this phone meeting. There's one other person on the meeting with me. And she said, well, Pat, you want to just not have the meeting today? It's just the two of us. And I said, well, could you tell me about your food plan? And she told me about her food plan. It was easy. I needed it easy. I'm ADD. I can't have something real complicated. And I didn't have to do a lot of research because she already did. and I wouldn't have to get up at Thursday meeting and say I didn't have a food plan. I mean, I felt like God was providing because this meeting was always like 8-10 people, and here there was just two of us. She explained her food plan to me. I adopted that food plan. And for the most part, I started losing. This is not exactly right. I started losing initially, but then I wasn't reporting my food to anybody. So, I'm tired today. I'm not going to write it down today. I'll do it tomorrow. And in the meantime, I was trying to find other sponsors. And because remember, I got abandoned horribly. No, I didn't. That was part of God's plan. Because I never would have been an ACA, which has helped me tremendously if that hadn't happened. But so I tried a couple sponsors. One sponsor told me if I didn't do exactly eat what she did, when she did, I wasn't willing. And so that wasn't a good sponsor for me. And but I kept, what did I keep doing, class?
Trying.
I kept trying. And I had to keep
Trusting.
because I ended up with a couple people. One person was nasty to me, sent me nasty emails, told me I was a failure. But every personality is different. I'm learning. Every personality is motivated by different things. There are people that need tough love to make it. At this point, I needed a sponsor that said, Pat, you're going to call me every day, and I don't care if you want to or not. I needed that kind of tough love. But I did not need someone saying, you ate an apple, and now you didn't write it down first, so you're a failure. But I had to keep what? I had to keep trusting that there was a sponsor I could work with, even though I tried a couple and they didn't work out. And so then recently I got a new sponsor who is so affirming. She knows I'm perfectionistic, and she works really well with that. And so I started redoing food plan that somebody made me get. And I started but I actually have to send it to her. I'm like, what? Oh no. And so I tried to send it to her and it didn't work, but then I eventually found an easy way to send it to her. I need easy. I found an easy way to send it to her. She suggested that I read literature every day. What? Every day? Who has time to do this every day? But then she showed me gentle steps, like the little for today book. Or, I don't have to read 2 chapters and outline them. I don't have to read 2 chapters and outline them and send them to her. I just need to read something every day because this is a time's up. Okay. So anyway, I'm really happy to report that I've lost 110 pounds, but more than that, I have serenity almost every day. I made mistakes? I've made mistakes. But I'm learning to take the next right baby step, and I can't tell you how helpful it is to call someone when you've eaten a banana or eaten a pretzel that you weren't planning to, and have them say, it's okay, you're okay, you can do the next right baby step. Nobody expects you to be perfect. That is a tremendous help for my program. So I have, right now, I kept trying, and I kept trusting, and I kept
Treasuring your powerlessness.
I kept going, even though it's been 11 years. I now have almost every day serenity with food. I physically feel so much better. I'm not at 5 times increased risk of diabetes. In fact, I'm not even obese anymore. I'm not alone morbidly obese. And I'm trying to do more service, professional outreach, different things. But this is a program that took me from utter despair, where I felt like no matter what I did, I would never be able to escape the clutches of this disease, to tremendous hope and the desire to share this hope with other people so that they can be free.